What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Furiosa, do a movie review. Kind of rare nowadays on these channels, but I came home a few hours ago from seeing it. It's fresh in my head, and I think it was just a masterpiece, honestly. I thought it was spectacular. I've been waiting for it for a while. I was never really, you see the trailers, and you say, Fury Road was such a great movie. The trailers, I think it looked a little bit more cinematic, a little bit more like CG than I would have liked, but when you go into the theater, and actually, I believe the movie does this, it lands. It does a perfect job, and it's not overdone in the CG. So any of those kind of worries from me watching the trailers completely evaporated. Some things I want to talk about with this movie is kind of, I would say it's very different than Fury Road in the way of I was actually expecting more action, and I left the movie not being disappointed by it, but actually being like, you know what, I think, and this was said about this movie by, I even saw critics saying it works as a movie of its own, right? It's got some incredible characters. It's got a great story. It's got the action, but it's got some heart to it as well, right? But it does a great job of fitting in with Mad Max. You think of Fury Road and you think of Immortan Joe and just all the stuff that they did with Fury Road. This movie does so much, I think, to help the world, the modern world of Mad Max, Immortan Joe, the Wasteland, the three different basically capitals or kind of bases of it, Furiosa herself. It just adds so much meaning to so many things that it really does both. It's an amazing movie in its own right, but it also helps the franchise and helps the next movie, or the one we got in 2015, a ton. I was even like whispering to my wife, "Oh my God, that's the seed that she gives to the people." It's really incredible in the way that it's able to pull that off. So, and I think honestly, it sacrifices a little bit of the action. There is some great action. It does, I think, an amazing job of doing the practical effects yet again. You get some callbacks from Fury Road, and so it does nail it. I thought in the action-y sequences, it was cool for me to kind of look at like the little things. There was a lot of almost like aerial shots where like people would be flying, and they had all these really weird like flying machines that I thought were really cool. They would throw down whatever they were throwing down. You'd see the explosion, and I don't know where exactly you were supposed to be looking on the screen, but just the small details of people falling and just things kind of running over things. It just looks so good. The actual cinematography, whether it was a fast moment or slow moments, I mean, the movie just visually looked incredible. Like, it was a joy to watch. In terms of like the length of it, I will say there was one time where I was kind of wondering, like, where are we in it yet? I remember telling my wife what felt like halfway in. I don't know the actual runtime, but I whispered to her, I was like, Anya Taylor-Joy hasn't even appeared in this movie yet. I think Furiosa as a character, though, was extremely good, both by her, and maybe she stands out to me because like she's kind of the second half, and a lot of the big moments, or at least the latter big moments, happens with her. But the young actress that played Furiosa in a lot of it, I would say, now she didn't talk much. In fact, a big part of her character is that, after what happens in the beginning that I don't have to spoil here, but she doesn't speak. Or at least if she does, she speaks very, very little. And by the time she does end up speaking, by then there's maybe a couple more scenes, then all of a sudden she's Anya Taylor-Joy. But I think she did a phenomenal job as well. And I think, again, that's what makes this movie, at least to me, so cool. I knew going in that like the dialogue was kept to a minimum. And while Furiosa doesn't talk a lot, other characters actually do talk quite a bit. Like Immortan Joe talks quite a bit. There's some longer speeches, and there's even actually a pretty long speech by Chris Hemsworth towards the end that I thought was extremely, extremely good. So it's almost like the supporting or like the exterior, characters, they're the ones kind of providing a lot of the dialogue. Furiosa, maybe in the same way that we saw Tom Hardy as Max in Fury Road, they keep rather quiet. But speaking of Chris Hemsworth and Dr. Dementis, what a character. That was the character, driving home from the movies my wife and I were talking about. I really think Chris Hemsworth stole the show. I remember seeing that in some of the reviews where it's like he, not necessarily the main character, but he's in it a lot and he does a lot and he just kind of stands out. He does. Now, I kind of saw a little like Jack Sparrow in him. My wife actually said he pulled a good Jason Momoa when he's the villain of Fast 10. I actually saw that where it's like he's a little wild. Maybe he's trying to do a little Joker, like a Heath Ledger thing. And I think Jason Momoa was trying to do that as well in Fast and Furious. Jack Sparrow, again, I kind of saw like the bending, of the back and just kind of the way his posture was and some of his speech patterns. He was a wild character, and I'm really happy like he took this gig because I think it just continues to flex how good he is. I think he's extremely good as Thor. But, having the accent now in this movie and just doing such a tremendous job. And, I don't want to get too much into spoilers. I just don't know if there's that much need, at least right now. I'll let you know if I change my mind. But he is a really good character, and I think he's not so black and white. Like, there's quite a bit to him where he is the villain, and, we don't have to talk about the arc or what he goes through, but there's a lot to him, and I felt myself kind of not wanting to root for him, but feeling very bad for him. The movie basically kind of puts Immortan Joe more in like the good light, or he's more of the ally in a sense, and I absolutely love seeing him. I think the design of Immortan Joe is awesome. Now, the actor who played him in Fury Road, he died right a few years after Fury Road, so this is new. They nailed the look, and I mean, he looks, I think, maybe a little skinnier, in the face. He's supposed to be younger anyway. The voice was very, very different, so I guess you just have to kind of live with it. He was awesome, but again, he's more painted towards you. You don't necessarily have to fear him. He's not necessarily looked at as a villain, whereas Chris Hemsworth is. But I think he just did such a great job of actually being a villain, but kind of being a complex one. And he kind of has it rough. Like, his situation as the movie goes is pretty messed up, and I felt by the end of it where it's like, he did some bad things. He definitely did some bad things, but I really think that just helps his character overall, because I felt for him, but he is kind of evil, and so what happens and all. It's an interesting ride you go on with him. There's, again, like, pretty much every character in this movie is really good. I mentioned in the beginning, one of the biggest strengths easily is that, like, just world building and helping it, and this movie also keeps it simple. Like, you think of Fury Road and you think of basically one long trip right down a road, turning around and coming back. Like, there's more to it, and there's also world building, but at its base core, Furiosa is supposed to go to to get gas. She takes a hard left, she goes down, she discovers basically what happened, and there's a nice connection there, even with what happens in this movie. They turn around, they come back, and they take the Citadel, right? In this one, it's also relatively simple. There's a few things that kind of like spicing it up, and again, it is more of a character journey of Furiosa as she goes through and kind of like establishes for me, just how kind of cool she is, right? But in terms of them setting up the locations, setting up how trades work, and even like with Dementis, Chris Hemsworth's character, right? There's a basic idea of what he's trying to do that you see as the movie goes. And again, I think he's kind of dealt a bad hand, but it pretty much just follows that. You go through it and it ends. Again, the pacing, I think, is overall very, very good. There was one time where I was just kind of wondering where we were in it, but overall, I think it holds the attention. And I think it captures a really good blend of the action, because there definitely is it. Again, it's not as much as I thought, but it's not overly CG, so I think they did as many practical things as humanly possible, but it's got the action. It has some emotion, like it has some heartfelt moments. I think it's got just a phenomenal villain. It's got great world building with how basically the factions or the clans, whatever you want to call, how the trading works and how everybody kind of maintains control and deals with each other. And there's even a little bit of comedy, to be honest with you. So I really think it just nails everything. Like, I'm so glad that it was good, because, Fury Road was amazing. You can even go back to like the old time Mad Max movies, but I really didn't even watch those kind of growing up. I kind of watched them later, but Fury Road was like the one for me, and the one that really got me into Mad Max. And I just rewatched Fury Road like a few weeks ago, so my expectations, to be honest with you, were very, very high for this one. And I mean, it could have let me down, but I really feel like this is an instant classic, and one that I'm going to want to get physically, and one that I'm going to want to watch over and over again. I just think it absolutely nails it. And you know what? I think I managed to go through it without overdoing it with the spoilers. There's the big moments in the movie are also kind of big. I think the ending is big, but there's also kind of smaller things throughout, whether it's something that happens to a character, whatever it might be, maybe a callback to something for Fury Road, even though it's not a callback, it's kind of setting it up. I think those moments are also all excellent, but we don't even need to get into it, to discuss how great the movie is. So I loved it. Granted, I don't go to see too many movies. In fact, very, very few movies, but I thought this movie was phenomenal. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.